Welcome to Therapy Unplugged, the podcast where two therapists offer insights to the real-life issues we all experience. We are your hosts, Sarah Benoit and Megan McCullough. Welcome back, listeners. Sarah here. In today's bonus episode, I am going to give you some quick tips on how to use self-compassion as a way to combat perfectionism. In our last episode, we talked about the idea of perfectionism, what it is, what the traits are. And during that episode, we offered up some ways to combat the perfectionism. So, just to quickly recap, some practical ways to challenge perfectionism include, for example, quieting your inner critic, forgiving yourself when you make a mistake, engaging in a creative project, doing something just for fun or just because, and maybe something new, and purposely incorporating small mistakes into relatively unimportant things. And the reason for that is to really show yourself that good enough is okay. If you recall, we also did an episode on self compassion, and we received some great feedback from listeners about that episode. And so today I want to hone in on how practicing self compassion can reduce perfectionism. One of the people that both Megan and I referenced during the self compassion episode is Dr. Kristin Neff. I found a useful self compassion test on her website, and I'll make sure I cite it in the notes. So if you're interested, you can take it yourself. What I like about this self compassion assessment is it not only gives you an overall score, but it also scores you on both positive and negative self responses. And how this is helpful is it explains where you can make improvements. So, for example, when I went through and took the assessment, I scored overall as a 3.02, which means I'm moderate in self compassion and I could practice it more consistently. When I did really well with the positive self responding, those were all above 3. And then the negative self responding, so the 3 categories that she outlines are self judgment, isolation, and over identification. And my highest one was isolation, which of course that's one of my traits. When I get into that perfectionism mindset, or it leads me into those tendencies, isolation is one of those things where it's like, well, okay, if I'm alone, no one's going to find out about this, or I can overanalyze it to death. So I think I'm going to feel better, which we know that doesn't work. So here's one of the keys. If you decide to do this, even if you don't, if you can look at, okay, when these tendencies or traits start to, peak up for you, not only, I think I mentioned in the perfectionism episode, paying attention to what are my patterns and where are the themes, but taking that example of the isolation, okay, what can I do? I want to combat that. I want to look at the positive self-responding. So that's where Kristin Neff talks about, that's where you want to look at the idea of common humanity, meaning, okay, I'm not the only one. Everyone, makes mistakes, or that whole, if you look broad brush, nobody's perfect. And oftentimes, as we all know, we're our own worst critic. So if you know what those negative traits are, say, for example, if you're being really critical of yourself and you're again, that's that own worst critic piece. Okay, how am I going to be kind to myself? How can I turn this around? And so you basically want to strengthen those positive counterparts. And so again, I think just to kind of, I guess, broad brush it here, one of the things that came up for me in this was really getting back to the idea of being mindful and grounded and centered. And there are a lot of ways to challenge our perfectionistic tendencies. The using self-compassion is just one technique, and I do think it's very helpful, and I wanted to make sure you had this resource. I think it's helpful not just for perfectionism, but I think it's one of those things where you get a lot of bang for your buck, so to speak. So I just wanted to throw that out there as an option for people. And like I said, if you decide you wanted to choose this method as a way, kind of putting it in your toolbox, I will make sure in the notes section that I have a link to this self-compassion assessment and Dr. Kristin Neff as well. So thank you all for tuning in. If there's anything that you want to hear from us, or there's anything you want us to know, please remember to subscribe and leave comments. And again, please share with your friends. If you want to leave us direct feedback that's not in the comment section, feel free to email us directly at therapyunpluggedpodcast@proton.me. I hope that you enjoyed this little quick bonus episode. Thanks for listening and be well. If you want to share your thoughts or ideas with us, you can email us at therapyunpluggedpodcast@proton.me. Until next time, be sure to subscribe to Therapy Unplugged on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere you get your podcasts.